Welcome back. Hope you're having a good morning. Well, as promised, let's get straight to the big exclusive today. Federal Bank MD and CEO Mr. KVS Manian, in his first interview after taking over, unveils the plan for growth. Speaking to Shereen Bhan, he says that the bank will be using the existing network to increase profitability and pace branch openings. Here's an excerpt of that conversation.
Well, let's talk about hitting the road running then, and the focus areas that you've identified as part of your growth strategy, Breakthrough 4.0. And you've probably also seen, as I have, the analyst reports that have come in after your analyst meeting. And while everyone agrees with the direction that you are taking as far as growing the bank is concerned, there are questions and some concerns on the execution challenge and whether the targets that have been set, for instance, on return on assets and so on and so forth, are too ambitious and doable. How do you respond to that?
So, Shereen, in fact, I clarified in my presentation there that those exact numbers are not important, right? The direction is important, one. Two, if there is a sectoral deflation or inflation of those matrices, obviously the point we were making is there is best three and next three, and we should lie somewhere in the middle of that pack. The parameters by themselves may change a bit here and there, but the idea is to lie in the middle of that pack, and that's the ambition. Just now, on some parameters, we may already be somewhere in the middle. Right. On some, we are behind. So the idea is to catch up with that. So that is one. So just to clarify, the absolute numbers are important, but you have to see it in a context. Yeah, they are not set in stone, and you have to see it in the context of the industry overall. Second, like I mentioned earlier, that yes, there is an aspiration built into it, some stretch built into it, yes. But I think the vision needs some stretch, and I am sure that team I have owns it. All the stakeholders that I have discussed the plan with are keen that we put some amount of stretch in the plan and go for it, and the confidence that the team will measure up to it is what is driving us.
So let's talk about the stretch that you speak of, and you said that people are on board with stretching yourself. The question that analysts are asking is, what will this stretch entail in terms of OPEX, for instance? I mean, how much do you intend to stretch yourself on that front? Right. Investments. Right.
So, we are not a bank which has a very comfortable cost-to-income ratio, as you know. I mean, we are at about 52–53%, and I would say I have relatively low wiggle room on stretching that too much. So, therefore, we'll have to follow a strategy where we grow our revenues and put on costs in tandem. We'll have to pace them reasonably equally, right? I can't just put all costs in advance because, like I said, 53, I can't stretch it too much. So, and I do think there are levers that we can use to push our revenues as we add on costs. And of course, to some extent, this is a 3-year plan, and we will pace ourselves in a manner that we keep control of our parameters and do not run away with too much investments in the beginning in the hope of getting revenues. We will balance ourselves.
Well, yes, so more restrained in terms of the kind of spends that you envisage. Yes. But if return on metrics is one of the aspects that you're focusing on as far as this plan is concerned, let's talk about some of the levers that you intend to exercise. And talk to me about what you intend to prioritize. One, of course, is the aspiration of becoming a universal bank. When you talk about expanding the franchise, for instance, what can we expect in the next 3 years realistically? You talk about 400 to 450 branches being added on. That's more than you've done in the decade gone by for Federal Bank. Right. So, prioritize for us what you intend to focus on.
Right. There is core part of the business and there is the universal bank ambition, right? So obviously core part of the business gets priority over the universal bank ambition. So in terms of prioritizing, that is one kind of prioritization. Second type of prioritization is, like you said, about the growth in branches. Obviously, we are not going to do in the first year out of the 400, 450, we will pace that slightly relatively more back-ended than front-loaded, right? We don't want to, for the reasons I already told you, that I don't want to change the cost-to-income dramatically initially. So I also feel that there are enough levers. For example, I have talked about it in my strategy. Our current account business, I would say if you take our CASA ratio, the broad breakup is 24-6, right? 24% SA and 6% CA. I would say
you're making it sound almost musical.
The 24% SA is fairly in the right zone vis-a-vis the peers, right? More or less, give and take here and there. The 6 of CA is where our difference is, and that's the opportunity. Even within our given network, our SA can be higher without any further investment. Just doing better focused work, we can get outcomes on that. So there are areas like that where we will prioritize to get, juice the network more to get some higher profitability products like car is something that we can do without adding costs. So obviously, therefore, that is higher priority. So I would say even in core, our priority will be to attack opportunities like that. For example, we are in the car business.
Right.
Can we do used car business along with that? We can. It doesn't require much investment, right? It requires just the focus to get it done. You have a base which you have done business with. Can you do that? It increases our yields and it increases our returns. It gives us more leg room, wiggle room for taking costs. So there are areas which are clearly identified in that plan, if you look at, which do not necessarily need investments. Yes, branches do need investments, but there are lots of areas which we'll focus on to make sure that we create more revenues as we go along and then incur the costs in parallel.
You know, speaking of creating more revenue opportunities as well as new lines of business for the bank, now again, plenty that's been highlighted there as potential opportunities that you're willing to look at. But will it be, if I would ask you, will it be buy versus build? What makes strategic sense to you at this point in time?
So I would say it's a mix of the two. In the core areas, I think it will be relatively more continue to build because there we have the skills, we have the distribution, we can still build without having to buy. There are areas where talent is required. Those are areas where I would say somewhere in the middle, build or buy. And there are areas where clearly which are outside the core strength of the bank. Let's say we talked about the universal bank area. Let's say if we have to think about as a universal bank in terms of brokerage or AMCs, these are completely different skill areas. So yeah, so there will be
that's likely to be the area where you consider inorganic opportunities?
Yeah, having said that, inorganic is my later priority. I would initially build core areas, get the bank on a stronger footing, create a better currency of the bank, and then look at inorganic. But yes, in principle, what you're saying is right.
And you can catch excerpts of this exclusive conversation with Federal Bank's MD and CEO all day today only on CNBC-TV18.